What do you need in outer space and beneath the ocean? What shields those who perform surgery and those who rob banks? What can block both curious eyes and invisible threats? Masks may have come to define 2020, a year that began with raging bushfires and spiraled into a global pandemic before March even arrived. But the story of masks stretches far deeper, from the golden mask of Tutankhamun to the mysterious masks of the Sangsingdui. Masks have been with us since the murkiest depths of human history, across our varied cultures. They can terrify, transform, seduce, or amuse. They tap into something primal, and often, long after the wearer is gone, the mask survives. So join us as we explore some of the most mysterious ancient masks. Mesolithic deer bone mask. Well, there are scary, and then there's this. I mean, how, why, and who first decided to hollow out a deer's skull and wear it on their head? At England's Star Car site, that's exactly what archaeologists found. In 1949, Professor Graham Clark was excavating the ancient peatlands near Lake Flixton in what was once a post-Ice Age wilderness when he unearthed something incredible, a red deer skull heavily altered by human hands. Its eye sockets had been bored through with primitive tools, and the antlers were carved down to reduce weight. This wasn't just a skull. It was a mask, a frontlet, and it was 11,000 years old. More of them followed. In fact, 33 modified deer skulls have been uncovered at Star Car so far. Some were made from freshly hunted animals, others from antlers naturally shed and foraged. The process was meticulous. Remove the skin, abrade the bone, pierce holes for straps, possibly use fire to help the tissue retract. What remained was something in between nature and craft, a hybrid of organism and object. These weren't just tools, they were transformations. And yet we still don't really know why they made them. Some scholars think these eerie headdresses were worn during rituals, possibly by elders, shamans, or hunters seeking favor from the spirit world. Others believe they had a more practical use as early camouflage. A hunter stalking deer while literally wearing one? It's not a stretch. These frontlets blur the lines between survival, ceremony, and identity. Star Car itself is one of Britain's most important Mesolithic sites. Though only 5% of it has been excavated, it's yielded thousands of artifacts, stone tools, barbed points, worked wood, beads, and faunal remains from at least 16 different species. And the deer frontlets remain the most iconic. Each is a carefully reworked object from the natural world, stripped, reshaped, and worn by humans navigating a world in flux. Lake levels were rising, the climate was changing, and food was getting harder to find. These masks, in that sense, weren't just bizarre adornments, they were essential links in a delicate ecological relationship. Today, these ancient headdresses sit in museum displays, but back then they may have been alive in their own strange way, worn by people who understood the land, the deer, and themselves as part of one interconnected system. It's scary, it's stunning, and it's just unearthly. What do you think about it? Let us know. Mask of Agamemnon. In 1876, a famous German archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann, already celebrated for locating the ancient city of Troy, made another super stunning discovery, this time in the shaft graves of Grave Circle A at the citadel of Mycenae in Greece. Among the treasures of gold, weapons, and the remains of 8 elite individuals, Schliemann found 5 intricately crafted funerary masks, but one stood out, a striking gold mask placed directly over the face of a fallen nobleman. Formed from a single sheet of hammered gold, the mask had delicately cut out ears, prominent cheekbones, and eyelids that seemed both open and shut. The facial features, defined beard, mustache, and stylized expression were so lifelike, Schliemann was convinced he had found the legendary king of Homeric lore. He famously telegrammed King George of Greece, declaring, "I have gazed upon the face of Agamemnon." Schliemann believed the mask belonged to Agamemnon, the great leader of the Achaeans during the Trojan War, immortalized in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Despite that, this bold claim didn't hold up under later scrutiny. Modern archaeological analysis has dated the mask to around 1550 to 1500 BCE, several centuries before Agamemnon would have lived, if he ever existed at all. In fact, the entire burial predates the commonly accepted period of the Trojan War by roughly 300 years. That didn't stop controversy from erupting. Some critics went as far as to accuse Schliemann of fabricating or commissioning the artifact to boost his reputation. However, detailed studies and modern techniques have confirmed the mask's authenticity. While it may not have belonged to Agamemnon, it certainly covered the face of someone powerful, possibly a Mycenaean king or military leader. The Mycenaeans were a Bronze Age people who flourished in southern Greece after 1750 BCE. They spoke an early form of Greek and were heavily influenced by Minoan Crete. Gold objects found in the same tombs, rosettes, butterflies, and rings etched with scenes of combat and ritual suggest a society steeped in wealth, hierarchy, and symbolism. Only 5 of the 8 bodies were buried with golden masks, suggesting elite status and possibly royal lineage. The so-called Mask of Agamemnon has since become a symbol of Mycenaean artistry and power. Today, it rests in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, hailed by some as the Mona Lisa of prehistory. And while it may not be the literal face of Homer's tragic war hero, it remains a breathtaking glimpse into a civilization that once ruled the Peloponnesian hills and perhaps even shaped the legends we still tell today. I mean, it's just spectacular. Blood mask. In the depths of a 1,000-year-old tomb on Peru's northern coast, a chilling mystery lay undisturbed for centuries. When archaeologists first excavated the burial site of a Sican elite in the 1990s, what they found was both eerie and baffling. A skeleton painted entirely red, positioned upside down, its detached skull resting to the side, crowned with a gleaming gold funerary mask, stained the exact same crimson hue. At first, the pigment's source remained unknown. The burial, located roughly 12 meters underground, also contained 4 additional bodies. 2 of them were arranged in a pose hauntingly suggestive of childbirth. 2 children's skeletons were also nearby. Surrounding them all was an astonishing haul, over a ton of gold artifacts and treasures, clearly marking the interred figure as someone of immense importance. But what stood out wasn't just the wealth, it was the ritualistic, almost theatrical nature of the burial. For nearly 2 decades, researchers assumed the red coating was cinnabar, a mercury-based pigment commonly used in ancient funerary rites. But something felt off, especially considering how vividly the red had endured over a millennium. In 2021, a breakthrough study at the University of Oxford finally revealed the gruesome truth. The pigment wasn't cinnabar, it was a concoction made from duck eggs and human blood. Well, yes, actual real human blood. That revelation cast the entire burial in a much darker light. The elaborate positioning of the bodies, the symbolism of birth and death, and the blood-painted mask all pointed to something far more disturbing than a ceremonial farewell. Many scholars now believe this was an act of resurrection, a ritual meant to restore life to the dead leader by offering others in his place. The Sican culture, which flourished in northern Peru between 750 and 1375 CE, is known for its amazing metallurgy, pyramid temples, and ritual human sacrifice. Their sacrificial methods were surgical and efficient, designed to cause maximum blood loss, often through deep incisions to the neck or chest. That grim knowledge fits disturbingly well with the theory that the additional people in the tomb weren't mourners, but offerings. This particular mask, painted in a pigment made of blood and yolk, may have served as a medium, transforming the deceased's face into a divine vessel waiting to be reanimated. The gold itself was likely symbolic, tied with power, the sun, and immortality. To the Sican, death wasn't an end, but a passage, and resurrection, in the right conditions, may not have been considered impossible. Today, researchers continue to study Sican masks and their burials, hoping to extract DNA from the remains and unravel more about the people who were sacrificed and the leaders they died for. If anything, this mask doesn't just represent power, it's a relic soaked in blood, belief, and a haunting vision of life after death. Mask of La Roche-Cotard. Well, it doesn't blink, it doesn't breathe, but it stares back. And for something carved out of flint 75,000 years ago by hands that weren't even Homo sapiens, that's a hell of a thing. This odd little slab, now known as the Mask of La Roche-Cotard, came out of a cave along the Loire River in France. Found in 1975, the object isn't a mask in the usual sense. It has no eye holes or strap marks. It's a flat chunk of stone with deliberate shaping, forming the top half of a face, and stuck straight through the nose bridge is a carved bone fragment, wedged in tightly, protruding like cartoon eyes. That part, just that detail, was enough to send archaeologists into 50 years of arguments. Because here's the problem. It wasn't made by modern humans, it was made by Neanderthals, and that opens a door no one was ready to walk through. Until recently, Neanderthals were branded as the clumsy cousins of evolution, strong but doomed, unimaginative, and probably drooling. They got wiped out, the thinking went, because they couldn't compete with our complex tools, language, or rituals. But this artifact refuses to fit that narrative. The shaping isn't accidental. The placement of the bone was precise and backed by supporting pebbles. The face-like appearance wasn't a coincidence. It was the point. Skeptics have tried to write it off. Maybe it's just a tool. Maybe that face is a fluke. Maybe the eyes aren't eyes. But these kinds of maybes start to rot when you zoom out. Because La Roche-Cotard isn't just a one-off cave scratch. The same site holds what are now recognized as the oldest Neanderthal engravings, lines carved into the cave wall that date to at least 57,000 years ago, when the entrance sealed up under layers of sediment. The engravings suggest pattern recognition, repetition, maybe even symbolism. And this so-called mask fits perfectly into that system, if it's real. If this thing was meant to look like a face, it's the earliest known example of facial representation in human history. Not ours. Theirs. It would mean Neanderthals saw faces where none existed, shaped meaning out of raw material, and maybe, just maybe, saw something sacred in the act itself. We don't know if they wore it, worshipped it, buried it, or just made it for the hell of it, but it's not nothing. And it's not primitive. The mask has lived in storage and museum drawers, scanned and rescanned with every new tech breakthrough. No one's found another quite like it. That might mean it was unique. That might mean we've just missed the rest. Either way, it stares. And 75,000 years later, we're still staring back, wondering what they were thinking when they made it and what it says about who they were. It's just brain-boggling. Iridium mask? In the world of archaeological discoveries, some artifacts arrive with more questions than answers, drenched in suspicion, riddled with anomalies, and often impossible to place. That's exactly the case with what's now being called the Iridium Mask, a strange and controversial find near Melbourne, Florida, where stories of lost Spanish treasure fleets have never really faded. Treasure hunters have long believed that off the Florida coast lies the resting place of the 1715 treasure fleet, a group of 12 Spanish galleons that had been loaded to the brim with silver, gold, and ceremonial artifacts taken from the Americas by conquistadors. Only one ship made it to its destination. The other 11 were smashed apart by a hurricane, dragged to the ocean floor, along with around 1,500 lives and a fortune estimated in the billions. For years, people combed the area with boats, sonar, and scuba tanks. But the find that sparked the most debate came not from some high-tech dive expedition, but from a lone beachcomber with a basic metal detector. What he found buried in the sand wasn't a coin, or a ring, or even a gold bar. It was a funeral mask, ornate, beaten into shape, and clearly ancient, believed to be of Incan origin. The mask may have been looted from a royal tomb in Peru and stashed in one of the doomed galleons before the storm hit. Its composition was already unusual, a mix of copper, silver, and gold. But what really pushed it into the realm of the unexplained was the discovery of iridium in its alloy. Iridium is one of the rarest elements on Earth, mostly found in meteorites. It's not something ancient civilizations were known to mine, let alone use in delicate funerary art. Including it would have required not just awareness of the metal but advanced smelting techniques. That detail ignited a wave of speculation. Some claim the mask could date back not 800 years, like most Incan artifacts, but possibly 12,000 years, suggesting it belonged to a pre-Incan or even unknown civilization. That would place its creation long before recorded metallurgy. If true, it could rewrite the history of metalworking entirely. Skeptics, of course, haven't let that go unchallenged. They argue the iridium could have entered the alloy through accidental contamination, either at the time of its creation or even post-discovery. Others believe the mask may have been forged in the colonial era using melted-down artifacts of various origins. Still, the mask is real, the metal is real, and the questions aren't going away. Whether it's a misdated Incan relic, a colonial amalgam, or a surviving trace of a forgotten culture that knew how to work with star-born metals, the iridium mask has reignited global interest in the 1715 fleet and what might still be buried beneath the waves. And until more answers emerge, it remains what it is, a relic of uncertain origin, surrounded by sunken ships, lost empires, and the lingering scent of myth. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.